no amount of success can save you from a society that can turn on you based on the color of your skin.
This idea of social justice, players have been doing this for the longest time, right? Players have been in the community. Players have been donating money. Players have been supporting the people who are disenfranchised, the people who are without.
Hi, I'm Everett White.
And I'm Vanessa Perdomo. Thanks for joining QuickTake and our partners at The Athletic. We're talking athletes and activism. Professional basketball players have remained committed to social justice and police reform.
That's absolutely right, Vanessa. Black Lives Matter is etched on decals on this season's NBA and WNBA courts.
And a lot of players are using their own money. Kyrie Irving started a $1.5 million fund to help WNBA players who opted out of the season.
And in an effort against voter suppression, the Atlanta Hawks, Detroit Pistons, and the Sacramento Kings are all using their arenas as polling sites for the 2020 general election.
So ultimately, players, coaches, and teams are making it clear this season is about more than just basketball.
To talk more about athletes and activism, we're joined by ESPN radio host and WNBA player Chiney Ogwumike and an NBA columnist with The Athletic, Marcus Thompson. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having us.
All right, guys, so let's jump right in here. Chiney, you're not only a star on the court, but now you're the first Black woman to host a radio show on ESPN. Congratulations on that. And can you tell us what does that role mean for you and for the young women that'll be watching you?
It means a lot, just because I sort of have come to understand, especially as a WNBA player, I guess I learned it through sports because our game is always compared to the men. So it sort of prepared me for this moment. I think when it comes to women and breaking barriers, the number one thing is representation, because you cannot be what you cannot see, right? So being able to have, a platform for my generation, this rising generation, that can sort of empower others to step into their own voice, because I think we've realized now the world is changing and us young people are finally doing, right? We're not just posting black boxes on social media. We're actually putting pressure on the system to change. And so now to be a part of that positive change and having my voice amplified, to me, first and foremost, I'm glad to have a company that has chosen to go in that direction. Yay, check. But more importantly, I'm glad to be able to share the mic with so many others, because I think through representation, we see that visibility changing. And it all started in sports. I mean, exposure is everything for us in the women's basketball game. But now in the broadcast, I think as an athlete, I take that mindset and keep that same energy.
Superstar.
Sure.
I mean, just a question for you both, just to kick more off. It's no secret. We all know it. It's out there. The NBA and the WNBA are majority Black leagues. So Chiney and Marcus, or Chiney, does that make social justice an inherent part of being a player? And then Marcus, does reporting on the NBA and WNBA make social justice a part of your beat?
So I guess I'll start and then I'll kick it to Marcus. When it comes to athletes and activism, what my teammate Candace Parker told me the most important thing and the most poignant thing, and I use it everywhere. Athletes, especially us, in the NBA and the WNBA, we are the majority of the minority. Candace Parker said it. Give her the credit. Meaning we are the majority. We are 80% of the WNBA Black women. We are 75% of the NBA Black men. So this cause is our lifestyle. A lot of times when athletes are like, oh, we're not expected to become activists or be on the front lines of protests. The reason why we are doing so is because we're conditioned to do so. By playing sports, we all know what that's like, right? Maybe some to some different degrees, but by playing sports, what we've learned is that we care about the last player on the bench as much as we care about ourselves. That's just how we're trained and wired. And most importantly, we're all working to have one common goal, and that is win. But it's not just winning, it's sharing that feeling of winning with other people. And so I think that's something that is ingrained within the DNA of athletes, and it's something we don't turn on or off. We literally go home, and in our communities, we understand our own privilege. Just because the world we live, we're looked to as celebrities. And I think in this time, we've been able to sort of take down that notion, just because the real celebrities are the essential workers. The real celebrities are the trash men and women, the nurses, the people that are fighting virus and fighting racism and fighting all these things, these symptoms. that have come up to the surface through the pandemic. So as athletes, I think it's in our DNA. We are ingrained to care about others and work towards a common goal. And that's why you see athletes choosing to, lend their voice to issues that matter to them. And so, yeah, it's not something that we are expected to do, but it's something that we are called to do by our calling and our profession in sports. And I know Marcus has done an amazing piece on me, and he's helped me find my own.
Say that again, by the way. I did a what?
Marcus has done an all right piece on me. You did okay.
It was amazing. I loved it.
It was the most beautiful thing I've ever had. And he got me vulnerable. And I think that's the place we are in society. We're in a very vulnerable state. And I think that has humbled us to be able to relate to one another in a way that we really need right now. And I know Marcus can speak to the fact of athletes, reporting on what they're doing in the times that we've had, because I think this is a huge moment, and I'm glad to see athletes on the front line of it.
What's unique about what you said is like, man, we really don't see this as social justice. Like, this is literally life. Like, somebody else has given this a name to our existence, but this doesn't, like, it didn't start with writing. It didn't start with hoop. And it certainly hasn't ended, right? Like, this is every day you have to deal with this, especially, coming from some places many of us come from. I've had this conversation with players like many times. I mean, the reality is we all come from the same struggle of trying to exist in this country. And we have taken these divergent paths. Like, I became a writer, Chiney became a basketball player and superstar and future president, right? And everybody takes these divergent paths, but like, it literally starts from the same place. So I never felt like I was writing about social justice, but I was writing about Black people. Like, that's what I was doing. Like, and that's probably why I was there, right? It's like, yo, we need somebody to write about these Black people because we don't understand. So yeah, let's hire this dude. And then you end up just telling the stories of Black people, but they're not that drastically different from everybody else, right? Even the grandest celebrity, right? The richest, the most exclusive celebrity, man, that dude or that woman has cousins, uncles, aunties who are in the struggle, right? And you never disconnected from it. So I think this is all interesting. Like, we're social justice. I'm like, yo, this has been my whole life.
Yes.
Like, this has been my whole existence from elementary school, like, free lunches and trying to struggle to get like good education. Like, this has been a constant fight. What school you going to, like, faking addresses so you get to the better school. Like, all this has just been a part of trying to make it as a Black person in America. So yeah, this ain't really new to us.
And I would also like to say, I think what he's highlighting is the aspect of privilege. I think because we are people with platforms and people of color, Black people with platforms, we honestly understand privilege just because that's not the norm for people that look like us. So even though we may play in arenas and you have platforms and titles and credentials, that doesn't mean when we leave the arena that we experience the same thing in day-to-day life. So, I always tell people that no amount of success can save you from a society that can turn on you based on the color of your skin. No amount of success I can have, can really change someone's perception if they just see me as a Black woman and not for my value and talent and worth. And we are at a point in society where we've been sort of on autopilot with these preconceived biases. And now it's sort of like, let's awaken ourselves to these biases because it's really holding us back.
In Marcus's piece, he was alluding to you saying those things about the Black women who haven't found their justice yet, and Breonna Taylor included. And you said that you couldn't get them out of your mind, and they were on your mind every single day when you woke up. Can you tell us more about why they were on your mind and why you feel that Black women need to be at the forefront of the conversation in America right now?
Yeah, I think that's because, everyone knows the Malcolm X quote about Black women being the most disrespected, disproportionately disadvantaged. And while I have been blessed to have so many opportunities through the game of basketball, I still sympathize and empathize and understand that that is not the norm for most Black women in this country. And so when I am achieving such success, I still understand that I could still suffer from the same biases as other people that aren't fortunate enough to have the blessings that I have. And so work is not just work, going to work and, living in my world is not work. it is a responsibility to make sure that we advocate for the issues of such women, because they oftentimes don't get heard, largely because they don't have the platform. They don't have the media coverage. I know this was basketball. We are constantly being compared to men, yet we don't have the exposure to really grow our game. 4% of women have 4% of the sports coverage. That's something that I'm trying to change. And I am working to change with my brand partner, ESPN, who really has, opened their ears and now are putting some action behind, my ability to be able to say, this is a story that needs to be told. And once we tell the story, people are like, wow, it's fascinating. But yeah, I think just in my experience with sports, playing in the WNBA, we understand the narrative of women getting lost in the narrative. We understand the fact that a lot of people sort of doubt us before they even know our contributions. We are the best women's basketball league in the world. The only 144 badass women of the WNBA get to compete, and it's the best of its kind. But society has preconceived notions based on just our gender. And I think when it comes to Breonna Taylor, obviously that was at the forefront of my mind because that was my existence right there. A Black woman in America that is all about service as an EMT, just trying to make it. And there's so many Breonna Taylors, not just in the US, but globally. I'm Nigerian American. And one of the biggest things that I've suffered was watching from a distance the sexual violence against women that was happening there. We can't wait for the system to change for us. We literally have to create that change, find allies, and then most importantly, put pressure on the system. I know that's a long answer. But.
Y'all thought I was playing when I said future president, right?
No,
Not at all.
For sure.
I see it.
I do think it's important to, we leave a lot of this stuff to the whims of capitalism, right? And I think in order to not be hypocrites in this whole movement, it needs to be important to elevate the voices of Black women. We need to support the WNBA. We need to support NWSL. We need to support and make sure it is our duty to make sure that platform exists, that we can no longer say, oh, well, the rating, whatever. Nope. And the truth is, many of us Black people already know this. We aren't even here without Black women, right? We were saved by our grandmothers and aunties, and we know what it's like to be hungry with nothing in there, and somehow you're eating well, right? Because some Black woman pulls some magic out. So I think as a society, we have to prioritize this. We have to say, we no longer can leave this to dollars and cents. Matter of fact, we need to invest. That's why, you see Kyrie Irving saying, yeah, I got money for the women who don't want to play, who want to sit this one out, right? We need to do those type of things because, it won't work properly. I really believe this. It will not work properly if women are silenced. It won't work. Nothing works that way. Literally, families don't work that way. Lives just don't work that way. And it's one of the things that we've allowed to just not happen for so long. And this is why we've seen the WNBA was on this first. It wasn't they're riding the wave. They started it. This was the Minnesota Lynx. You know what I'm saying? So if we just look at the examples throughout history, you just can't leave women out of the picture.
In 2016, there was a tremendous moment in our country. And I think that's why you see women's, female athletes at the start of it, because 2016, we almost had our first female president. And when that happened, in reaction, we also had a huge women's march where we started looking to our left and right and whoa, we kind of roll deep. Whoa, we kind of have a great voice when we put it all together. And I think athletes took note of that. After that, we start seeing women band together. And the way I say that is, in the WNBA, we are reaching out to the NWSL. The NWSL is reaching out to our U.S. women's hockey team. And in 2016, thereafter, after realizing our collective voice as women in America, period, athletes started leveraging our collective voice as well. And so when the U.S. women's national team goes to the World Cup and wins a gold medal, they're talking that talk, but they're also walking that walk and bringing back, obviously a championship. When you have, the U.S. women's gymnastics team taking down a sexual abuser in Larry Nassar, you have obviously the WNBA signing off on a record-breaking CBA, which we didn't know was record-breaking at the time, but we were really just trying to push and leverage the voices of others who have set precedent so that we can set our own in turn. And then you also have the U.S. women's hockey team literally hoping to fight for one viable, fair league. And in return, they win gold in the Winter Olympics. Like, we talk that talk, but we also walk that walk because we understand our value and worth. And we're not waiting on others anymore. We're looking to each other. Literally, there's Megan and Sue's telling us on the executive committee in the WNBA. And then I'm getting support from Hillary Knight. And then I'm here, in Houston with Simone Biles. We're all coming together to do it for ourselves because no one else will do it for us but us. So I think that's the shift when it comes to women. Women realize the collective voice. I mean, we've always had one, but now we understand that we are individual brands. We can control that brand. We don't have to wait on our leagues to do it. And then we can also reach out to others because with our CBA, our collective bargaining agreement, we literally set precedent, not just for women in sports, but women in the workplace, period. Maternity pay, mental health resources. Okay, these are all things we took from other leagues and different ideas and put it together. And I think that's why a lot of people saw it as a groundbreaking achievement. But the more I thought about it, it was more of ground establishing because this is something that should be expected for all women in the workplace. And Kyrie Irving, I've known since I was a senior in high school. We went to the McDonald's All-American game together in Columbus, Ohio. And I've always known he was a different dude. Like, he would be cool by himself or he'd be cool with the crew, the whole squad. He'd be dancing or he'd be reading. And he's someone that really has a huge and open heart. So when he called us together and sort of said, this is what I'm planning on doing, he said, this is with no expectations. I'm doing this because you are queens and us kings should support you as well. And I just thought this is consistent with who he is, the essence of who he is. And this is something that we should all celebrate. And hopefully people are now seeing him for his intentions because this is something we've always known from day one.
I do like the fact that Kyrie was one of the people who was saying reportedly, like, we shouldn't be playing, we should focus on things bigger. And the difficulty that they found was trying to figure out how do they play, keep it going, but also make an impact. And I do think there is a role to be had. There is something to do while they're in the bubble. And I also think some of that energy needs to be targeted inwardly. When I say inwardly, I mean in the Black community, right? There's a lot that needs to be done. This is these times, we don't even know yet, but at the end of this is going to be devastating for the Black community, especially. We still have barely, if at all, recovered from the Great Recession of 2008. The Black wealth is about to take a hit. Black businesses are about to take a hit. Like, families are falling apart. People are dying. People are sick. Healthcare is an issue. We haven't even seen like the full ramification of this, but this is going to be devastating. So it is important for Kyrie to say, look, I get it, send the messages, right? But at some point, it's you just can't rely on athletes to stop racism. Like, white people are going to have to figure that out, right? But there's support needed in the Black community. So I'm glad in an effort to make this movement, Kyrie is saying, yeah, let's take care of our own. Let's make sure we're supported.
But how much do you think that the older athletes, Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, those kinds of things have influenced the way that they go about what they do now?
I think those legacies put athletes on notice, right? I think those knowing that those people exist makes people say, all right, what am I going to do, right? Like, if you're LeBron James and you are at the top of the sport and you watch Jordan get, take a hit from not like speaking out like he should, like people expected him to, you watch OJ become this caricature because, he's not Black, he's OJ. I think it told athletes, hey, you will be remembered for how this happens, for what you do right now. Like, this is a legacy that will happen. Now, you could be Muhammad Ali or you could be OJ, right? Like, which one do you want to be? The money exploded to a point where there really wasn't an excuse not to be that, right? Like, they have so much more independence and liberation because of their wealth. Like, those former athletes were risking everything, right? I mean, they weren't making that much. They weren't making it like these guys, right? Where like the ninth dude on a bench is making $10 million, right? That's not the world these former athletes are in. So it really just became a matter of how greedy do I want to be, right? Like, I mean, I've got all this money and plus knowing no matter what I say, I'm still the commodity. There is a player empowerment component to this where it's like, what y'all really gonna do to me? Like, what are you really gonna blackball LeBron, right? So it gets to a point where it's like there's no excuse not to do it.
We want to thank you guys so much for your time, Chiney and Marcus, both of you so much. There was really important things brought in today. You both said some really great things, and we want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having us.
I appreciate it. Is that you on your wall back there?
It is.
Or are you trying?
Siblings, doing big things out here. Marcus and Chiney, thanks again so much for making the time to be here with us today and talk about this really important issue.